Hey, grateful day, everyone, and welcome back to the Therapists Deserve Abundance podcast. This is Dr. CK. And so we have a special guest today. We are doing a Where Are They Now series. And so me and my team thought it would be very fun to put together a series where we bring back either those who have been on the podcast before, because if you have not caught any of our previous therapist interviews, which I'll make sure to link below in the description box, we have brought people on to talk about successful private practice, digital products, and other what we call clinical streams of income. And so, what we're going to be doing today is we have one of our super duper alumni, Dr. Warren, coming on. I will allow him to introduce himself. But this interview is going to be slightly different than his previous one. So I will link his past episode up. But we will be talking to a group of therapists that are hungry for information, but specifically execution. And what I've been requested to do via at least YouTube is bring people on to do more case studies, and they want to hear real life conversations. So I want to bring to the stage Dr. Warren, and I will allow him to introduce himself with all of the beautiful acronyms for our future therapists and talk a little bit about what he's doing right now in business. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. Hello to everybody. My name is Dr. Warren Wright. I'm a licensed professional counselor in the state of Texas, a national certified counselor. I'm also an approved clinical supervisor, just received that new certification. I'm currently in private practice, and I work also online as a counselor, educator, and professor.
Nice. So let's go ahead and jump into it. I'm going to really encourage everybody to go watch that first episode. And so, because we were talking more about, I think, to students and
Yep.
mentorship and things like that. So let's go back to from, I'm going to say 9 to 5 to entrepreneur. First question I have for you is what made you go ahead and step into entrepreneur from our post-licensure world?
hmm Yeah, so a big part of that, I think around the time I met you, I was in my doc program full time as a doctoral student. And so I did my first year in my doctoral program working in the college counseling center, right, 9 to 5. And realized that I needed more flexibility to really be invested in my doctoral studies. And so I, venture off into private practice. So by the time I met Dr. TK, I was already a year in and still needing that support to really come up with the structure and the systems in my business so that way it can be smooth for me to have that flexibility. And so that was really my motivation to get into entrepreneurship, to build a counseling practice, to complete my doctoral degree.
Yeah. And for those, I mean, I know that we have a different group of like various groups of clinicians on like the podcast. And so we have students, but we also have therapists who are at different levels in private practice. And these days, private practice does look different
Yep.
because I've noticed, at least with content on Instagram, there are a lot of therapists asking for streams of income, which we'll get into. But one of the things that that we talk about a lot, especially at live events and stuff, is sometimes we don't realize how much our systems are not organized
Yep.
until we actually try to add another stream of income and then we find ourselves having to go backward. And so can you speak a little to why the back office operating systems are very important to your first stream of income before you start adding new ones?
Yes. So for me in my business, if I didn't have the structure and the system, really the SOPs to kind of know how to respond to clients when they, reach out to me, to schedule them, really focusing on that initial intake to termination or graduation of services, I wasn't able to provide any other type of system. And so for me, I was getting the opportunities, right, to, start to explore other streams of income. But for me, I didn't have the SOPs. I didn't have the systems to integrate that into my business. And so it wasn't until I met with you and the DTA group and community to really focus on, okay, how am I structuring things? Because I have all these other opportunities and I'm either going to take them on and be overwhelmed, or I need to have some type of organization so that way I can have a set schedule and structure in my weekly schedule and my monthly schedule, quarterly schedule. So that way I can do those other things, which I'm doing now.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm glad that you talked about the structure because as you were listening, I'm trying to put myself into the shoes of someone who has been in practice for 6 months, part-time or
Yep.
more. And they're like, I have the information. And we're not talking about information. So let me be clear. And I shared this in a previous episode as well. We are in the information stage of AI, right? And
hmm
so we are not naive to not think that that is not attempting to come for a part of our job, right?
Yep.
However, we have a wealth of information and now it's not behind a paid wall, but that's not where we see therapists fall through the cracks. We have continuously, even with AI being fully present, we've seen therapists fall through the cracks with execution.
Right.
And execution sometimes fall through the cracks because of a capacity issue, probably because they're holding so much information in their head and it's
Hmm.
not structured, it's not documented. So that's what he's referencing in terms of we give a particular playbook in a vault per se with community access and being able to walk you through it with live coaching and mentorship. But some people try to go just based off of intake, progress note,
Hmm.
I'm good. And you're a therapist, that's great, but that's not actually running a business.
Right.
And so from private practice, what was your next stream of income that you start tapping into immediately? And can you share some details around what that looked like to build it?
Yep. So started off with just seeing clients, individuals, and some couples as well. And so my second stream of income came always forget like how I met this person, but it was through I think believe some type of networking event that I went to or attended. And they were just like, hey, we need some licensed mental health professionals to facilitate wellness seminars and webinars for our EAP programs. Would you be interested? And so I hopped on a
Mhm.
call with my contact, just kind of get to know more about the organization that was facilitating these webinars. Also needed to know, what training I may need it, right, as a mental health professional to facilitate these. I mean, I had all of the basics, right? I had the license, I had the experience, I had the clinical experience, and then it also helped too that I was a graduate assistant and a TA for my doc program, so I had that teaching experience to facilitate these workshops. So that was my second stream of income, working with EAP programs to facilitate wellness webinars and seminars, whether it be virtual or in person.
Okay. So, I mean, so EAP is interesting because I think that that is a area that therapists really don't tap into enough.
Hmm.
And I know that there are two different, I'm gonna call it two different types of EAP. So some companies out there exist for you to only do EAP, and you just got
Yep.
to find those processes online or maybe ask around. And then, of course, the ones that a lot of therapists stay away from is they automatically attach it to being on an insurance panel. But I
Hmm.
recall going through insurance panels directly, not through a third party. And you can actually check off only EAP services only or no EAP one-on-one, but I only want to be available
Yep.
for community events and emergencies,
Yep.
kind of thing. So I'm glad that you speak to that because now what we're talking about, everyone, is the diversity of streams of income within a solo practice,
Hmm.
meaning you can have various CPT codes per se or serving couples, families in the community, and not even needing to a degree a whole nother stream of income as we're going to get into today. Cause I think that
Yep.
people get overwhelmed when
Yep.
they think about other streams that for us require different systems and different
Hmm.
marketing. And
Yep.
so I'm glad that you brought that up. For EAP, on average, how many, if you have seen one-on-one, how many sessions are there? Or for community emergencies, how often are you called out for that?
So good question. So as it relates to doing one-on-one work, I get those on and off. And so I don't get a lot of referrals with doing one-on-one counseling through EAP programs. And if I do have a client, I've seen clients who had 8 sessions within a fiscal year. I've seen some clients who had 20 sessions right through their EAP within a fiscal year that they were able to utilize those services for counseling. As it relates to wellness seminars and webinars, they have their peak seasons, right? So I had to also
Mm.
start thinking about knowing our numbers. When would I get more, invitations to do those? And so I had to keep track of like the patterns and the trends that I was seeing in business. And so I know typically in the spring, end of quarter one, beginning of quarter two is where I see an increase in the invitations that I will have to facilitate those. And
Oh,
then
wow.
towards holidays, like at the end of the year, there's a decrease, right? So then I have to really focus on what I'm going to be doing in my business, right? To provide the service and to provide have the revenue and the income coming in.
Mhm.
I do critical incidents or like response management services as well. And so those are very sporadic because an incident can happen at any time. And
Right.
so recently with this new company that I contracted with, I just did one the end of February where was there on site for like 8 hours to provide just psychoeducation about folks' EAP services, and then to do any debriefings if the critical incident impacted their mental health and emotional health. But with this new company, I would say I probably get 2 or 3 texts or calls within a month. And so if I'm able to respond to it, I say, hey, I can respond to it. I get set up. Let's talk about debriefing and just preparing me for that assignment. And if not, I just let them know I'm not available.
Yeah. I'm glad that thank you for saying that word, critical
Yep.
incident. The reason I ask is that, some of our therapists are like, oh, I want to do one to many. I want to do workshops in groups, but there are particular things that happen in the mental health field related to EAP per se
Yep.
that are not as in terms of frequency as often. So if somebody's putting all their eggs in one basket, I just want to let people know, do not do
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
You still need to go out there. We're going to talk about speaking in a moment, but you still need to put yourself out there to be called for opportunities, not just rely on a panel to have your name out of multiple providers
Right.
be available in a state. Cause it also depends on your specialty. And as you mentioned, your availability,
Yep.
you know?
Yep.
So okay, we did EAP, we have your different client avatars in your practice. And so from there, outside of the traditional clinical practice, I know that you've tapped into digital products. And so
hmm
can you share where was your first like interest in the digital product world and what was your first product?
Yeah. So my first product, was actually related to the clinical work that I was doing in my practice. And it actually was helping me to build my dissertation too. So my dissertation topic is about Black professional counselors addressing racial trauma in counseling. And so I had a lot of clients at that time, especially during the pandemic, as we saw like a lot of increase in like racialized violence for Black and brown people. And so a lot of my clients were coming in with anxiety, depression, signs of PTSD. And so I had to provide psychoeducation around that, of what they were responding to, how that was impacting their bodies. And then again, being a part of your program, right? Understanding really how to take the data that our clients are giving us and to create other products to help them and support them. I realized that I was having the same conversation with them about how to seek safety, how to ask for support, how to, rest and recover when they experienced those different things that they were, seeing on social media through the news and how that was impacting them. And so I just came up with a framework. And then I started using that framework in session with my clients. And I said,
Wow.
I'm going to make this into a digital product. And so I did that. So I have a racial trauma workbook that I've used. I've got feedback from colleagues that are in the field that have used it with their clients as well. And I got positive feedback. And so from there, I was like, whenever I give a presentation or a training on my dissertation, I can also sell that digital product from the stage. And so that was my first digital product that I created.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow. And I want to heighten because I know that our community, in terms of therapists, we're not very familiar unless you've been in certain rooms, the word framework.
Yep.
And so I'm going to give like two just simple definitions. So if you're looking at clinical services, we know that every therapist has a framework. You probably just have not named it, right? And it's
Yep.
not a theoretical orientation that comes out of a book. It's your own way of delivering services from the time that the client or patient reaches out to you,
Yep.
present a problem, and then how you can help them solve their problem and get them to the transformation. Very similar to, as we get into this conversation in a few moments, is speaking also has frameworks, but sometimes the framework may be the acronym. Maybe you introduce a particular acronym and you walk somebody through the process of the acronym to help them get whatever they need out of the speaking engagement.
Yep.
And so I love that you, again, just used what you were already doing. I want to hyper emphasize that. But more importantly, you paid attention.
Yep.
You paid attention to the data, the conversations, and y'all therapists, please do not create at least on your first one, two, three next streams of income. Create from what already exists,
Yep.
but maybe it needs to be a carve out for a particular type of client. All right. So I want to take everybody back to actually the first episode we did. We talked a little bit about being in the room for live events.
hmm
And I remember we were broken up at tables at the Palms at the
hmm
last Therapists Deserve Abundance conference. I don't remember if you were at the speaking table or digital product table. Do you remember?
Speaking, I was a speaking
Okay.
saber. Yep.
Okay. So let's keep talking about digital products and then we'll lead into speaking because I know that you saw a guest speaker, someone in our community, and you
Yep.
went off to then build something based off of these frameworks. And so, can you talk about your existing digital product that you flushed out a lot in that room and then went to go build the whole thing?
Yeah. So at that time, even though I was at the speakers table, we talked about a lot of different topics, right? And what we can do in our practice. And one of the other speakers that was there, guest speaker, I still call her Coach Shayla. She was talking about memberships, and I had the idea of working on something to support counselors in training, but outside of academia. I was like, I don't want to do any type of groups. I don't want to them to be my clients. They're not my ideal clients. And so I was like, what can I create? And so I just wrote the ideas down, but I brought them to the conference just in case it connected with anything. And so when she brought up memberships, I was like, boom, that's it. It's a membership. And so I connected with her, went through her coaching program on how to build, again, the back office, how to utilize different platforms, how to create like automated emails and stuff like that to go out to my community. And I created the Counselor Preparation Academy, which is a membership program for counselors in training. And so that's another product that I also have too in my business.
hmm And I want to highlight something real important because people were just so when you came to New York last year because we were like, oh, we didn't do no webinars. I remember you were very adamant, like, I'm not doing none of that because I already treat like this full-time job. I'm preparing for a personal life event.
Yep.
Like, I'm not doing any of that. And so can you share with the therapist who does not want to do a webinar, but they do need to do email marketing? What
Mhm.
was that like for you to do something that was faceless?
That was definitely different because like we talked in our one-on-ones before of like just the I think you called it a trust recession. And
Mhm.
so for folks not seeing me or not knowing who I was, I really had to really again like explain who I was, my background, my qualifications, but then also help them with that transformation. I also have relationship capital in my profession too. So when I share this with other colleagues that are professors, other colleagues that are mentors, that they have students that need that additional support and mentoring, they can just say, hey, you need to connect with Dr. Warren because he has this already. So I was able to leverage that too, as well as marketing on social media, right, through Instagram to talk about my membership. And so all of that was really important to do.
Yeah. And you mentioned relationship capital. And so again, I think we keep circling around the same topic. Use what you have access to.
Yep.
And for those of you who are new to that term, I realize the people in your circle, and that includes places that you've worked. And this is why, as therapists, I know a lot of people want to leave their 9 to 5 job, and entrepreneurship ain't all what it's cracked up to be because you really have to be in it to win it
Yeah.
for the marathon. But you don't want to burn bridges. You want
Right.
to bow out gracefully, or even if you are still there, of course, operating within sometimes there are conflicts of interest,
Yep.
clause and things like that. You want to be able to position yourself where if you are like Dr. Warren having a stream of income that's related to what you show up and do every day at the college, and now
Hmm.
you are mentoring students in a different capacity, you can utilize that type of years of experience or even hours because some
Yep.
people haven't been doing something like that for a long time. But there's a different way therapists can use it for social proof. Think about how many hours you've put into teaching, even if it was for a semester.
Yep.
That's about 10 hours a week at minimum, depending on the level of students, how many papers you got to grade.
Yep.
We're talking about hundreds, if not thousands of hours. And so I'm also giving y'all marketing language. When you are getting in front of a group of people, stop saying I only got 1 year. Start saying I have over 3,000 hours of collected
Yep.
X, Y, and Z, because that sounds way better like
Yep.
these days. So you launched what I call with Instagram a faceless in these day and age digital product. What were the results? Because I know you launched it a few times,
Hmm.
but what were the results of your launch based off your goals?
Yeah. So I think the first time it surpassed my goals because I can't remember my conversion rates and all that right now, but with that I had a higher conversion rate the second time depending on how many people I had on my email list. So basically those who I reached out to who expressed interest in that actually invested in my mentorship program. So that conversion rate did increase the second time. And even though I didn't have the same amount of folks, right? Which is typically interesting too when you think about it that way. But for the most part, the newer members are now more invested. The folks who started off as my inaugural cohort, they got what they needed, and then they also refer some of their colleagues or friends that they know in the field to me, right, to provide that mentorship. And so it's been really successful. I definitely want to launch it again. And then there are some tweaks that I want to do just based on some of the feedback that I received. But
Mhm.
so far, it's still holding up.
For students who are watching, what are the qualifications in terms of what we call student? Where do they need to be at? Because we'll link everything, everyone in the description box of how to connect with him, but it may not be available, but still connect so
Yep.
that you can be informed as we're talking about with social media and specifically emails.
Yep.
Get on his list wherever he's going to lead you so that you can know when it launches, but what type of student should come to you for that mentorship.
Yeah, so the students that are, I would say, like, are the ideal client avatar for the mentorship are folks who are in their master's and doctoral program. And so I did have recently, so because I'm trained as a counselor, there has been some feedback that I receive or questions that I receive of, are you also accepting other disciplines? And right now I am, right? So if you are a mental health counseling student, if you are a school counseling student, even if you are a psych student or social worker student, I'm still accepting those students as well, because the experiences with grad school is similar, right? The things that you have to prepare for as it relates to field experience, the field post-graduation is the same. And so I'm also opening my door. So those are the things I was talking about, just tweaking so that way
Yeah.
the language can land with more folks. And so they don't feel excluded because I'm only talking about counselors.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's so, so good. I know in our community, we talk a lot about how, therapists, we identify as therapists, maybe even entrepreneurs, but
Yep.
we forget that we are in sales.
Yep.
And I hate to say it to you, all business has sales. Your consultation is a sale, your Instagram post is a sale, your intake is still a sale because people
Yep.
need to come back, right? And so with sales comes messaging, and good messaging, not perfect messaging, which is your words. It comes from testing out what you have created and
Yep.
launched, and then don't throw in the towel. He met his goal, but there are some people who don't meet their goal, but the data always tells you something. And I know we
Hmm.
talk about how zero data still tells you
Yep.
something. So we talked about that in New York. Like
Yep.
people are like, I didn't get no email addresses or no sales. And we're like, okay, so what does that tell you? Your email subject lines need to change so people can
Yep.
actually open up your emails, etc. So you went off, you launched it a few times, and I know coming to like more in the last 6+ months, you have started doing a lot of speaking. So let's get into
Yes.
that because I just had a masterclass and therapists really want to hear about that. And so where have you spoke, experiences, and then we'll dive into some nitty gritty.
Yeah, so this is something that I've been wanting to do, and it's funny because I've never had the time to actually map out what I want it to look like. But then I get these opportunities to speak, and I'm just like, okay, I really need to like dial back and really structure this out to speak. So I think I shared with you last year that I was nominated to be a keynote speaker. And so I was a community impact and engagement keynote speaker for Law and Ethics Conference and Counseling in New Orleans earlier this year. So again, I utilized what I already had. I spoke about my dissertation. I kind of shared again where I wanted my dissertation to go, the implications for the counseling profession. And then from that stage, I was able to sell my digital product as well.
Mhm.
And so again, that was just this, I feel like this 2-in-1 combination of being a keynote speaker, having the platform to sell the digital product as well. And then recently, last month in February, I was also called back with a church that I've worked with before, where I did a smaller training type panel where I was a mental health expert for their panel discussion. And then they called me back 2 years later and say, hey, we need some speakers for our men's conference. Would you be able to come and kind of talk about a topic that you already, talk about with Black men in particular? And I already had that set up again because my clients are mostly Black men. And so
Mhm.
I did that and was able to also, just be in this space to share my expertise and be on a main stage. And so those are the two big conferences that I had so far this year. And then I also have one this upcoming Saturday, this
Mhm.
weekend, where I would be again presenting my research, my dissertation research, and sharing about the implications of my research to the field of mental health.
Let me unpack this. Okay. So one thing I want to highlight, only because I know recently we had a speaker's kit masterclass. And I know some people just look at speaking as Mental Health Awareness Month.
Hmm.
Some people are waiting for speaking to drop on their door. And I will say, based off what you said, it can be organic. All my speaking engagements have been organic or
Yeah.
through Capital. But the only way that somebody can refer you or hit you up is if they see you or they hear about you. And those people who hear about you usually will see you.
Yep.
And so you mentioned 2-for-1, and I want to break this down for those who are interested in workshops or speaking. It was something I actually heard this morning. I love personal development.
Hmm.
The guy said, if you are in business, you are in business of sales, and if you want to attract good buyers, you need to become a good buyer. And
Hmm.
so I mentioned that because just a moment ago, we talked about how you were at an event. You knew when you brought something on a sheet of paper, like, I know I want to do this. And then you magically saw someone appear on the stage because we didn't really announce all the topics,
No.
but you were like, this sounds great.
Yep.
So when you are positioned on the stage, even on a panel, it all automatically everyone puts you at another level for people to see you, right?
Hmm.
And I tell people, do not let an opportunity like that go to waste. Get permission from the person who hosted the event, of course,
Yep.
so that there won't be any conflict. But the beauty part is people will come up to you, which means that you should either be offering people to get on your email list, right? Even if you don't have a product, don't go and create something if you don't have the bandwidth.
Yep.
But if you have something that would be good match for the audience, that is the 2-for-1 deal. We call it in sales a back end offer.
Hmm.
You go and speak as a paid speaker or for free, but you get permission to talk about one offer. Don't be giving like
Yep.
5 to 10 things, y'all, because people can't make choices like that. But I love that you mentioned that because I think that a lot of therapists are called to speak even at churches or local events, and it can easily be a referral source for their private practice
Yep.
or to be called to another church to go speak, like pass my name around.
Yep.
And so, what I want to speak about confidence because I know that that is something that goes into limiting beliefs with therapists to go and speak. Did you have any journey around confidence in speaking to a one to many crowd? Because I also know you're a professor, so it
Hmm.
makes it naturally. But can you speak to those who may feel like they're in their head around speaking to a group of people at the same time?
Yeah, I say for me, I really had to grow more so into my expertise, more so
Mm,
than my confidence. Because I've always been a performer in some way, whether I was in a drama or I was on a debate team. I was a stepper and a dancer growing up. So I've always performed. As it related to how do I translate my knowledge and expertise to land with the people that I'm speaking to, and so I had to grow more so into that to be okay with saying, hey, this is what I know, right? And
mhm.
to not like dim my own light. And so that's what I had to work through. I mean, it
Yeah.
also came with practice too. So being a professor, going to conferences and giving, breakout sessions and conference sessions, facilitating those other trainings that I'm doing, like with the EAP programs, I'm always, giving a presentation. So whether it's a webinar, or whether it's in person, I know how to facilitate those spaces. And so for me, it was just practice. And so growing and being in this space of like, okay, I need to show up, right? And I need to put myself out there if I want more of these opportunities. I can't say I want to do that and people don't know that I'm doing it. And I'm not ashamed of going into a wellness seminar and being like, hey, I'm going to record myself speaking to you all. And like, I'm getting content for my business. They're just like, okay, cool. We can get some content for you too and send it to you. Even better, right? But you don't know what you don't know until you ask the question and you just ask for really what you want. Yeah.
Right. So to my DTA, TSA, ECM clients, those of you who have the previous version of the speaker's kit and those of you who have the new one, this is just so ironic because what you just said was what examples we gave
Okay.
in the speaker's kit masterclass. Like, one, if you want to be a speaker, you should probably let somebody hear you speak, saying, even if it's a 1 minute video, but also if you want to speak on a stage for 15 minutes, 30 minutes, or an hour, why are you constantly creating 7-second clips?
Hmm.
Like someone cannot hear your full message and no one's going to want to pay you to speak and they got to piecemeal your whole message together on
Hmm.
TikTok videos. And then one of my good friends just had this conversation the other day as well around teaching makes you actually by default a better speaker. Why? Because you are containing a large group of people, even if
Yep.
it's 20 students. You are doing different activities, trying to see what lands and what does not.
Yep.
You allow them to ask you questions, and you got to either get creative with how you answer it or go and find the answer and come back next week and answer it. It keeps you on your toes. So, in essence, what I'm saying, because one thing that we also addressed is because therapists have all of these hours of collected experience, we then want to sometimes walk into other streams of income and say, I want to earn $2,500. And I'm sorry, the world does not work like that because that's a different skill set.
Yep.
But if you want to build a skill set and you want to get out of your head, start going somewhere even for free. Go to people you know, though. If it's warm, probably feel better.
Hmm.
And just go ask to speak for 15 minutes about what you do in your private practice. That's all you need to do,
Yep.
you know? So when we reflect back, because you do have a lot of streams of income, and I know that some people are getting like super excited and wanting to do them all. What are some tips that you can share with therapists that want to do everything you just talked about all at once so that we can reel them back and like maybe focus on one thing at a time?
Yeah, I would say one, pace yourself. And then also you really have to map out how you want to show up in your business for quarter to quarter or for the year. And so for me, there were periods in my business where I did more EAP wellness seminars and crisis incident responses because I had a email inbox they were flooding with the invitation. So I did mostly of that. But then again, knowing your numbers, you have to know, okay, sometimes I may have to see more clients in a seat. And then kind of balance it out with other streams of income. So I would say definitely pace yourself. And then again, to create a digital product, use what you already know and then also use what's already working. Because similar to my previous keynote engagement, I already had a digital product. It related to my dissertation topic. It related to what I was speaking on. I was able to do the 2-for-1 to say, this is what I know. This is what the implications are. And if you want to know more about it or implement it into your clinical practice, you can download, purchase this digital product to help enhance your work and practice. And so again, do things that complement each other, not that's going to stretch you thin and then it's going to be confusing for your buyers.
Yeah. And one thing I also want to, if you could speak to working in solitude these days,
Hmm.
because I know that you're in we're all in different states. And, going into clinical practice, what I do wish that they talked about in grad school, because I know some people want them to talk about business. And I'm like, that's not what they're accredited for.
Hmm.
They're accredited to help you get licensed. But one thing I wish that they would talk about more is the mental health of the therapist who, even at a job, is going to be working in solitude, because you may go to a team meeting, you may be in a private practice office or be in a home,
Yep.
with your family, but you're still doing your job in solitude. And so, what does it feel like for you? Because you've been in different types of rooms, some rooms with
Hmm.
therapists, some rooms with men, some rooms with digital product creators. Can you speak to the importance of getting into physical rooms in a day and age where people are choosing now to stay in solitude?
Yeah. So for me, depending on what my goals were for business and just for my career, just in general, I connected with that community. And so, working with Dr. TK and the different communities that she's built in her business, I connected with them. And then when she shared with me, what's your vision for the next 3 to 5 years? It's kind of like, this is what I want to do. This is how I want to enhance my reach. And she said, it sounds like digital products. Let me get you connected with my mentor. And so going to those live events again just gave me that fuel and that stimulation, right? To
Mhm.
take those ideas and to execute once I got back home. And so for me, I work from home now, fully remote. And so things that I do now, I mean, if I'm not taking a trip or a vacation, I'm connected with friends, going out, getting something to eat, some good drinks. And so it's just community has been helpful to sustain me in this work as
Mhm.
a solo practitioner.
Yeah. And I do want to just reinforce, everyone go watch his previous interview, because we broke down the whole 9 to 5 transition.
Yep.
But also go watch the other interviews, because what you will notice is one theme. Every time I hear y'all talk, I think about one theme. They become very clear on what it is that they want, not just for even this year, even though that may be my question for a program when you come in it.
Yep.
I still want people who are big thinkers, because whatever you do in the next 12 months dictates you being 20% or 25% closer to that 3 to 5 year goal. And what you will find is that the timeline will get shorter because you are clear, versus the person who is trying to honestly listen to all these interviews and like embrace all these streams of income
Hmm.
in 12 months. And also, another theme that I've noticed is organic is winning right now in terms of what innately, skill set do you already have or that you're developing. And then the doors just keep opening because you are following the pathway that you're supposed to be, walking on.
Yep.
And then somebody else will just open up the next door, but you got to complete what you start you know? And so with that in mind, is the one, where can people find you, the platforms or whatnot? What's the best way to get in contact with you to learn more about what you're doing?
Yeah. So folks can follow me on social media, Instagram. I am Dr. Warren. I'm on Instagram, and that's the way people can follow me and kind of keep up to date with the different things that I'll be having going on in my business.
Okay. And I want to encourage everyone, we always do this, go and hop into his DM. We'll put the hyperlink to his Instagram and let him know what was your biggest takeaway. Of course, put your comment on the bottom of this podcast episode, like this video and subscribe so that it can find more therapists like you or featured therapists. But go over to his Instagram and DM him and let him know how you like this episode, because I find that you all are enjoying the casual but motivational interviews that we do with other therapists. And our biggest thing is to reach and teach as many therapists as we can.
Hmm.
We have a goal of 1,000 each year, and we definitely surpass that, even by the presence like someone like Dr. Warren coming on and sharing their journey. And so I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming back to the podcast. We hope to do another Where Are You once
Yeah.
you do some other keynote speaking. And so, yeah, everybody go follow him, get into his DM, and I will see y'all in the next podcast episode. Have a great day. Bye.